So hello everyone, welcome again to the Notice Cross-Cultural Interaction event. Welcome to our speaker, Chrissy Scott, who will tell us about the celebrated days in Scotland. Thank you for coming, Chrissy. We're really happy to have you here.
Thank you for asking me.
And thank you all for joining us from your homes. It's really nice to have you all here. Before getting started, we'd like to tell you about the importance of intercultural dialogue through a video. And we'd like to show you how interaction between cultures is essentially the key to worldwide peace. So yeah, it's the video now.
Okay, so I stop share?
Yeah, you stop share.
Yeah, just in a bit. Yeah.
Like that.
I saw the future bright in my dream one night. That rain was falling like quietly everywhere. Ahintlayışlayan saat gibiydi. Bir silinip gitmişti karanlık geceler. It was like the clock working with harmony. Dark nights disappeared and lit up one by one. Yeni bir dünya, yeni bir dünya, yeni bir dünya kuruyorlar da. Universal peace, universal peace, universal peace. They were building. Her taraf gökler gibi parıl parıl. Yeni bir dünya kuruyorlardı. Everyone was sparkling like blue skies. They were building a better world. There were violent people with modest faces. I understood that they were like an angel. Şükranla gezenler vardı kol kola. Sonra bir ulaştı herkes bu yola. Brothers and sisters as they were traveling. At the end each of them reached their path. Yeni bir dünya, yeni bir dünya, yeni bir dünya kuruyorlar da. Universal peace, universal peace, universal peace. They were building. Her taraf gökler gibi parıl parıl. Yeni bir dünya kuruyorlardı. Everyone was sparkling like blue skies. They were building a better world. Hep birlikte yeni bir dünya kuruyoruz. Sevgiyle aynı dili konuşuyoruz. All together we are building a better world. All together we are working for a better world. Hep birlikte yeni bir dünya kuruyoruz. Sevgiyle aynı dili konuşuyoruz. All together we are building a better world. All together we are working for a better world.
Thank you. I love how that video shows that love is the only international language, and oh no, it's nice. So today we'll be with Chrissy, and she'll help us understand the Scottish culture and the celebrated days in Scotland.
So thank you everyone for inviting me along to have a chat with you this evening about celebrated days in Scotland. I also have my lovely assistant David here, although he is lacking in sequence this evening, so I do apologise.
Okay.
And the cat may also put in an appearance. He is sitting to the right of me. So yeah, I think much like everyone over the world, we all share very similar holidays, but traditionally in Scotland, I decided to focus on 3 of our more traditional holidays. So does anyone have any idea what they might be? Would anyone like to hazard a guess? Has anyone been in Scotland for quite some time and managed to celebrate any of our traditional holidays?
You can just type in anything in the chat, by the way. Anyone?
We are celebrate Christmas every time, every year. Actually, yeah, celebrate all the time, Christmas.
Christmas? Oh, brilliant. I actually didn't put Christmas in for this chat.
And also, I've been a couple of times Burns Night, and I was a couple of times. That was a fantastic, amazing. The program I've been a couple of times. That is a fantastic for me. Good experience.
Brilliant.
I wish everyone can have a one time, at least one, to the being there. It was really good to know Robert Burns all about and having dinners, and sometimes it's amazing. I've been 2 things, you know what I mean? So just to remember just now.
Well, that's such a good point, and hopefully after you've seen a couple of my slides, then have you actually had a Burns Night at a St Andrews at the Nurture at all?
I think we didn't. I don't know, maybe, but I've been.
We must organise something like that then. I think we must. It would be very rude not to.
We must together. I'm writing that down, Chrissy.
Yep. So just bear with me because I'm trying to figure out how to get my screen to go. Hold on.
Just click on your screen.
So you just click on my screen. There we go. So for me, I think celebration is just such a human thing that we all do. And especially in these really challenging times, it's really important that even though we all can't physically be together, that we are staying as connected as we can and that we're just celebrating even the little things. So the 3 traditional Scottish celebrations I decided to focus on were Hogmanay. Everybody all heard of Hogmanay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is known in other parts of the world, New Year's Eve.
Oh.
We've got a very traditional thing that we do in Hogmanay, which is called first footing. And you are supposed to be visited, I believe, by a dark, handsome stranger. And it used to be they would carry coal, but I think that's changed over the years into a bottle of whiskey or some shortbread. And
take some coal or something to put in the fire so that you were helping the house. And you would also take a bottle of something warming for very no purposes.
And then obviously we have our Burn Supper where we celebrate our local bard, Robbie Burns. And we have that, and again there's a wee plate of haggis, neeps and tatties sitting there in my great Glaswegian brawl. And then further on in the year, in November, we have St Andrew's Day, which is our national holiday. So if you bear with me a wee second, because this is my first. So I thought it would be quite good to kind of explore some of the similarities and the differences in the celebrations. So things that are really, really similar through all 3 events are food and drink. Really, really, I'm sure in every culture, any celebration has really good food and drink that keeps us all sustained as we're enjoying the celebrations. Music is an absolute must. I don't think it matters what language any of us celebrate in. Music is always such a universal language. Dancing. Which, that was actually an excellent video. Was that some sort of youth multicultural kind of convention that was happening?
Yep. It's IFLC. It's just one of the organizations connected to the Nurture, actually, and it's a language festival. So many people come and they sing in their own language, and then at the end they sing this song in English. So yeah, it's lovely.
Brilliant. So I think that when we decide to celebrate perhaps one or eventually all three of these events at the Nurture, then that should also be part of the thematic, and we all sing that song together. And then that way what we're doing is bringing all those traditions and cultures together. Because I think that's really important. And celebrating, and I think a big part of it is very much togetherness. Now, are you ready to see the differences? There are none. This is Scotland. Everything revolves around food and drink, music, dancing, celebrating, and togetherness. Whether it's a Monday after work or it's Burns night, this is what we do all day long. And actually, I think Hassie's been, I think he was a Scottish man before. He's definitely got it going on if he's been to a few Burns nights already. Yeah? Yeah. So we're really lucky. I think we get to celebrate quite a bit over. So David's got a report.
Chrissy, may I ask you one question, please?
Please, Zainab, please.
You mentioned Saint Andrew Day. You said it is a public holiday. What is who is Saint Andrew, and what is his impact to people? So why do Scottish people celebrate? It's a public holiday.
So St Andrew is the patron saint of Scotland. Quite why, I'm not so sure. There's no evidence that he was actually Scottish, unlike St Mungo, who is the patron saint of Glasgow, who was Scottish, and who in around about the 1100s I actually studied with St David of Wales, so they knew each other, which was a rather lovely story. But St Andrew, patron saint of Scotland, and rather delightfully, he is one of the saints whose festival is celebrated in my parents' village in Spain every year. So it's some countries celebrate their saints' days a lot. We do not, particularly in Scotland. And when they are celebrated, it's not normally with any strong religious connotations or context. It just is. It is a clearly it is a hangover from the time when the church was very strong in its influence in Scotland, particularly the Roman Catholic Church. But nowadays, not so much. So we have our saints' days, and that one, because it's a patron saint of Scotland, we celebrate that at the end of November every year.
And if we didn't have St Andrew, I'm sure a group of Scottish folk would find someone else to celebrate on that day as well. I know, yeah. But I was going to find a wee bit more about you about St Andrew and how he did that. But
Thank
David,
you.
No, thank you for asking such a great question, Zainab. Does anyone else have any questions that I can't answer and that I'll be glad to pass to David?
Yep, please feel free to ask.
Okay, so David was going to do a wee poem, weren't you?
Now, if you're going to go to any event in Scotland, very often we will say grace beforehand. And Scotland has long been a very inclusive country.
Correct.
So sometimes you will go there, and if they have a minister or a priest, then you will get a Christian grace, when they'll thank God for everything that's been provided. But far more common, and the grace that's spoken most often in Scotland, is the Selkirk grace. Selkirk as in the town in the Scottish borders. Now this dates from a time when Robert Burns was visiting a friend, and when they sat down to dinner, the friend asked him, "Please, Robert, would you say a grace before dinner?" And not knowing the company he was in, and whether they were all churchgoers or not, he delivered this grace, the Selkirk grace, which acknowledges the Lord, acknowledges a God, but it could be anybody's God, not just the Christian God. Words that there is some debate over whether Robert Burns actually wrote these words himself, or whether they were words that he knew. But the grace goes, and I have delivered this many times myself and heard it many hundreds of times over the years. And the grace is, some he meet but canna eat, and some can eat that want it, but we he meet and we can eat, and say the Lord be thank it. And the translation that I put down there is, some people do have meat, but for whatever reason they cannot eat. And some people are starving, they're really hungry, but they have no meat to eat. But whenever we sit down and we break bread together or we share food, we acknowledge that we have meat and we are able to eat. So praise to our Lord, whoever our Lord happens to be. And I think that's just a lovely inclusive poem. It's a grace that you will hear often. The youngsters, when they have their Burns suppers at school, they'll come back having had to learn this or write it out in their school jotters. So you'll hear this often, and it really ties into a theme that I think is so important for us to welcome new Scots to our place of birth. And there's the phrase that if you have more than you need, you shouldn't build a bigger wall, you should build a longer table. And so that's what we like to do. And I think this poem really encapsulates that. You know, we know that there are people out there less fortunate than we are, but for this moment, we're together, we have food and we have great company. So let the Lord be thanked.
Yeah. And I think that really reflects what you've all built at Nurture, is that inclusiveness, that community, sense of spirit, sharing, everyone taking care of each other, you know. And I'd like to think and hope that wider Scotland is that, and like any other country, it's not without its challenges, but I think overall, and I think that's where it falls to us all to adopt that camaraderie and community with each other, because the more friendships and relationships that we all build with each other, the more we make that intercultural, the most usual cosmopolitan country it can be.
Yeah.
And Robert Burns wasn't, if you forgive me interrupting, Robert Burns was not just a poet. Robert Burns mixed with the great and the good from all over the world. There is clear evidence that he was in Glasgow at the time of the visit to Glasgow by Benjamin Franklin.
Sorry, there we go. You can tell that. Oh, back again. Sorry.
Was the music coming through, by the way?
Yeah.
That was, I guess, it was. So, there is strong evidence that Robert Burns was in Glasgow. Now, this was at the end of towards the end of the 18th century, in the 1770s. Benjamin Franklin, one of the fathers of the American Revolution, Benjamin Franklin visited Glasgow in 1759 and again in 1771, became very good friends with a man called John Anderson. John Anderson is credited as the founder of the University of Strathclyde, although at the time that he and Benjamin Franklin were together, he was a professor at the University of Glasgow. And if you ever meet any Americans, do feel free to tell them that we have universities. We've got a bookshop in Glasgow that's older than their country. So that's just for fun. Don't start any big arguments. So John Anderson went on to found the University of Strathclyde, and Benjamin Franklin founded what became the University of Pennsylvania. They were great friends. But anybody who was anybody who stayed in Glasgow around about that time would have stayed in the Black Bull Tavern, which is, if you can picture the city centre, the Black Bull Tavern now is where Marks and Spencer is, at the corner of Glassford Street and Argyle Street. And they must have met socially. If you look at newspaper reports of from the time of major events and major social events, it was there. And we see lots and lots of influences in Robert Burns's work from Highland culture and Lowland culture. And of course, it was the Highland Society that built the Black Bull in the first place. So the other thing that Benjamin Franklin is famous for is the founding of the Emancipation Society and the first moves in America to address the wrongs of slavery. So what were all those influences? It just seems to me that anybody who comes and visits Glasgow is able to find good influences, and I'm not completely blind to the faults of my city. As in any city, there are problem areas, but there are still some great, amazing, good things here, and wherever for all our young people, I'm just very, very proud that we're able to find nice things, positive things to inspire them, things to make them want to be the great, fantastic people that we celebrate. And there you go. And also, as we speak, St Andrew was one of the apostles. He was Peter's brother.
There you go.
And so somebody in the dim and distant past decided that he was to be the patron saint of Scotland. Don't know who, don't know why, but we've been celebrating him so long, we're not going to stop now.
No, any excuse for a party. And I think just picking up on what David was saying there as well, I think that comes, and I'm really hopeful that with every generation that, that shift happens that much quicker. We have more tolerance, more acceptance of each other, and that cultures can become more fused, where we can still celebrate what's traditional for each of us, but also have a fusion of those things and be able to celebrate them in a kind of multi-party. So yeah, we're really looking forward to whatever the next party is over at the Nurture when it's safe to do so. And we'll be glad to put David in a kilt for you. Or Bruce.
Have you seen the chat? It says that Robert Burns has a statue in Dunedin, New Zealand.
Yes.
Hold on a wee second. I have no idea where the chat is.
Hold on.
Bear with me. Hold on. It's quite good having a historian and a technician as a husband. There we go.
There we go. And need to go
to participants. Oh, there we go. There's a chat. See it. Okay. Oh.
He has statues all over the world, funnily enough. I think my particular favourite is the one in Boston, in New York. And of course, the connection between Glasgow and Boston is very, very strong. And if you've heard, one of the acts which started the American Revolution was the Boston Tea Party, where the English imposed a tax on any tea which was landed. And so that started the process rolling. But it's quite clear that on the day that that happened, many of those present in Boston were from Glasgow. And there are minutes when lockdown is over and we're able to get back into the Mitchell Library. One of my first tasks is to rescue some old minute books from organisations that were involved then, so that we can show this to be true. But it is true. But I just don't have access to the documents to demonstrate it. Lots and lots of connections there. And of course, that's not so very surprising, because Glasgow over the years has been one of the centres for not only shipbuilding, but ship owning. And many of the crews on modern day ships are employed through Glasgow-based shipping agents, for example, Denham's. So lots and lots of things there. Yes, there is a museum for Robert Burns in Ayr. In actual fact, his house at Alloway, the house he stayed in at Alloway, has been preserved, and you can visit it. But there is also the museum itself, and fascinating individual, and yes, he is celebrated every year. There are different types of Burn Supper, of course. There are Burn Supper where lots of mostly men like to go and just drink and behave outrageously, and there are Burn Suppers where the poet's life is celebrated very strongly, and where people put a lot of time and effort into learning his poetry and reciting his poetry, and there's a lovely additional toast to all of these dinners, which is the immortal memory of Robert Burns. And some people just research so much about him, and that's a speech that's usually about 15 to 20 minutes long. Although I have been at dinners where the speech has been over 1 hour long, and that's not so much fun. but super story, and lots about him online.
Yeah, I was just saying to Amit there, he was saying Hogmanay is one to celebrate, and I said, yes, Hogmanay is my favourite out of all three, but it's good to celebrate all three so none of them get jealous of each other.
I've actually never knew about like Glasgow's not point of view, but Glasgow's people influence on the world we live in today. I had no idea. And actually, before coming here, I didn't even know what Glasgow was. But yeah, I think this should be talked about more. Like, okay, I'm pretty sure people that joined us today as well, they maybe just learned these things, and they're really interesting.
But I think what a great place to learn. You know, when we go and visit David's parents in Spain, there's so much that we learn when we're there that we would have hoped that we would have known. Or if you're going to travel anywhere, doing a bit of research. But I think it's until you're actually in somewhere and actually living and being part of that culture that you start to get really under it gets under your skin, I think is a nice way to put it, and you want to know more, and it draws you in. And I like to think that that's how I feel when I really miss traveling. I love Glasgow, but I miss traveling.
The connection between Scotland and Eastern Europe is very strong. We were very influential, not just in America in the 18th century, but also in the late 17th, early 18th century at the court of Peter the Great in the Hanseatic League, which would have, and you must forgive me because I don't know how deep into Middle East that we went, but there's joint everywhere around the world. There are two histories: the histories of the traders who went backwards and forwards and made connections and networks and united families and brought them together, and the history of expeditionary warriors who just wanted to go and fight. And it's very, very difficult when you dig into history to decide who was on whose side, because of course so many of the warriors were mercenaries who would sell swords, that would take whoever had the greatest coin. And I remember I was at a dinner and I've forgotten his name, but he is a great philanthropist, and he was saying one of the earliest finds when they were doing an architectural dig in the Hebrides, the Western Isles in Scotland, so absolutely out in the wilds, and they found once they dug down deep into this discovered ruin of a house, of a homestead, and they found Arabic coins in this, showing quite clearly that people were trading from one corner of the continent to the other, and those were coins dated from around about the 11 and 1200s, which of course would tie in with the Crusades and what have you. So really, the connections have been there for more than 1,000 years. So I just think it's lovely that we're all now getting to meet as friends and new families.
It's funny how Christina has to type everything down.
I'm a much faster and better typer. We very much divide our skill set and share, but David's now being mauled by the cats. So you might see him moving about a bit more. So I think just to kind of round off, we've got a wee song for you. So have you all heard of Auld Lang Syne?
It's probably
Yes.
the most famous song in the world. It's the one that's sung at New Year festivals all the world over. In Scotland, though, it is a traditional song to sing at the end of any evening when we're all together. So if when we can get you all to dinners at the Trades Hall, or if you ever go to a dinner in Scotland, the traditional way to end it is by singing Auld Lang Syne. And so that's the next track. We've found a rather lovely one, which is very faithful to the original words that Burns wrote. But as it plays, you'll see on screen, at the top of the screen, you'll see the words that are being sung. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the translation. So I'll distract the cat. And Chrissy can press the button.
Yes, a real family affair tonight.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and Auld Lang Syne? For Auld Lang Syne, my Jo, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll talk a couple kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne, and surely he'll be your open step, and surely I'll be mine, and we talk a couple kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne. We twa hae run aboot the braes and pout the going's fine, but we've wandered many a weary fit sin Auld for old lang syne. We twa I paid it in the bun frae morning sun to thine. But seas between us braid hair old sin old lang syne. And there's a on my trusty fear, and she's a hand of thine, and we attack a right willy woe for old lang syne, for old lang syne, my Joe, for old lang syne. We'll attack a cover kind as yet for old lang syne.
Sorry, so that was quite funny. I couldn't answer the chat. I was trying to answer the chat and I didn't realise that when I went to do answer the chat, it would stop the music. So I'm
That
happy
was a
to
really nice, like, I'm pretty sure I've heard it. I've heard it, but it's a really nice version.
It's a lovely version, and I think what's really nice is David managed to find the one that has the true Scots speak, but also the translation in English as well. Because even as a true Scot, I need the kind of English version to do a bit of translation.
And does it have a story? This song.
Yes.
Hold on.
So Robert Burns was a very active Freemason, and so the song celebrates his connection with his fellows. It would have been then. It was very much a male-oriented society, so all the men would have been together. But essentially, the whole gist of the story is that we've had a great time in each other's company. We're parting now this evening, but we will be together again, and we'll remember the good times for forever and ever. You know, and it is sung all the world over, and you know, I mean, I just love the song, and I love that particular version of it. Whilst that was playing, I did a bit of research on St Andrews, so that was a super question from Zaynep, because there were some things that I did know but had forgotten, and I wanted to be sure of it. But he was one of he was one of the apostles. He was a fisherman with his brother Peter, from Galilee, and eventually he was crucified by the Romans. And this cross that we all see in all the religious figures is actually not accurate. They would have been the crucifixion cross was an X-shaped cross. If you can think of the way people would have been strung out. That's a pretty gory subject, isn't it, for this time of night? But the X on the Scottish saltire is derived from that symbol. And he was made.
We can't hear you well.
His bones were sent. So one of the things the Roman Catholic Church was very good at was sending wee bits of things that had religious significance all over the world. So his bones were sent to Scotland in 597, an Augustine mission, and a shoulder blade belonging to Andrew was gifted to Scotland by the Archbishop of Amalfi. There's a story. Here's a shoulder blade from some guy that died a 1,000 years ago. But he was first hailed as Scotland's patron saint in the year 832. Well over 1,000 years ago, 1,200 and odd years ago, after Angus, Oengus, Angus II, led an army of Picts and Scots to victory in a battle against Aethelstan's Angles at East Lothian. So one of the history of Scotland is that we always fight the English.
Sorry, Eve. Eve's on the call.
This is the history. Well, Eve comes up here and gives as good as she gets.
I know. I don't take it personal. That's right.
But we also were great at going over to Sweden, and we fought alongside the Swedes against the Poles. So for some reason, Sweden and Poland always fight each other. And as I say, we've sent our people all over the world to go and fight, but we've also sent our people all over the world, as you've just heard, to reproduce beautiful poetry. And we really are I like to think we're a warm, loving nation. So it's not all about fighting. Is it, Eve? There's Phil. Phil's saying nothing.
So actually, while they're actually on, I'd really like to introduce both Eve and Phil. Eve and Phil are responsible for bringing fair trade to the UK. So they are a definite one to get on the Nurture group chats, so they can share the great work that they all do with you.
Yeah, it's been great to be here. And just David, you know, I mean, yeah, we chose to live in Scotland, and yeah, it's lovely. And I think the future is bright. I think, you know, me and Philip were at school together, so we've been married 50 years next year, which is a bit scary. But our school taught us to embrace cultures, because in the East End of London, a lot of different cultures were moving in, and of course our parents were scared. But our school actually taught us to embrace cultures and the diversity. And so for me, it was natural that I went into fair trade, and, you know, with all the different cultures around the world. My family, my second family is, you know, we've got people in Palestine, everywhere, you know, not that I've been everywhere, but as a network, we're all connected through trade. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a real beauty in not just many of us all coming in and working and living in different countries, but living in this digital age where we can be so connected with shared values. I think peace and love is having much more of a voice over, you know, greed and hate. So long we may keep those conversations going and all support each other, so that everyone benefits and shares in the prosperity of the world.
Definitely.
Okay, so I really don't have anything else. Thank you so much for accommodating. Sorry.
So I was going to say, I think that's why education and schools have got such a role to play. You know, I really do, because, you know, it's it's so important.
Mehmet was telling us on the chat earlier, weren't you, Mehmet, that he had sung Auld Lang Syne in assembly, which was really cool. Yeah. So we were just having a bit of private chat back and forth.
Yeah. No, it's good.
So, so just keep us posted and let us know when the big Nurture night is, and we'll just have it fall on whichever one is soonest out of lockdown and it's safe for us all to get together. Yeah. And I think we'll all chip in and make it a really good, you know, multicultural event, and we'll just have a real good party, because I think we could all do with one soon.
I don't know what the English have got. I think it's Morris dancing, but I'm not a Morris dancer. I don't know what the English can bring to the table. I'm sure there's something. What can the English bring? What's our culture? Apart from going around with trade and, you know, ruining everything, colonial trade, which is why I'm trying to make it right. No. You know?
Only a select few. Eve, thankfully, most folk are the good and the great, thankfully. But there you go. There's your homework, everyone. Go and check out Morris dancing.
You should type it in the chat so we can see how it's written, maybe.
Brilliant. Okay. Does anyone have any final questions?
I would like to thank both of you. I would like to explain everybody, I know how you are very busy, and for sparing your valuable time for us.
We are so privileged to be asked to join your community, and thank you so much for always welcoming us into your community. We feel really privileged, and we are so happy, and we can't wait to get to know more people once we get out of lockdown. I'm really glad that David was in tonight so that he could carry the loads, because I genuinely thought the chat was about what we did for work, which I can talk about all day long.
Yeah, I remember in our
Scottish
first
history is
meeting.
David's bag. But it's like life, you just adapt and overcome.
But really, thank you. Sorry, David.
Like so many of you, I'm back at university now, and the old brain doesn't hold things in memory quite the way it used to. So I'm having to try not to forget one set of things I've been learning, whilst we dredge the memory banks for something else. But it's been fun. Really enjoyed it, and I hope we'll get the chance to come back and join you again.
There's actually, just to finish up, and I think if we don't get a chance to do it all together, then certainly check out a company called Invisible Cities. They are based in Edinburgh and Glasgow and a couple of English cities as well, and they empower people out of homelessness by giving them jobs as tour guides, and they take you around some of the most fantastic places in the cities that you wouldn't normally get to see on a usual tour. And so that way we get to support society a bit, whilst we get to learn more about the history and culture of our cities. So check out Invisible Cities, and I'll send Assia the link over and she can pass it on to the Nurture. Okay,
that'd be lovely.
All right.
Thank you so much, David and Chrissy. That was honestly a lovely talk. I'm very happy to have you here. The Nurture is very happy to have you with us. Thank you so much. And it was really informative. I love how David told us everything. So
yes, delegation is a master skill, isn't it, Zainab?
Oh, thank you.
You too.
You know what
Good evening, everyone. Have a lovely night.
We'll be closing with the song we played earlier about worldwide peace. So you can just listen to it if you'd like.
You will. No, I would love to. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, have I taken mine off? Yes, I have. Thanks.
Oh, yes. Just a minute. Yeah.
Bright in my dream one night, that rain was falling like quietly everywhere. Saat gibiydi, bir silinip gitmişti karanlık geceler. It was like the clock working with harmony. Dark nights disappeared and lit up one by one. Everyone was sparkling like blue skies. They were building a better world. Sonra bir ulaştı herkes bu yola. Brothers and sisters as they were traveling, at the end each of them reached their path.
Thank you. Thank you. See you in our next event. Thank you all for coming. Good evening.